Hi, welcome to another video where again I'm going to talk about books that I've basically bought over the past week. So this past Saturday I went on another book buying trip to a library, friends of the library sales. The first one was a small scale sale in Scottsburg, Indiana. Um, and it was actually in like what looked to be like an old residential house behind like a Presbyterian church that was a couple of blocks away from the library. And I rummaged through there and I found some interesting things. I'm trying to limit and just talk about the most interesting things. So, of course, the most interesting thing that I found there was this: Essays on the Great War, papers published in Newfoundland and Labrador studies. And these are papers related specifically to Newfoundland's involvement in the First World War. The Race of Honor, an analysis of enlistments and casualties in the armed forces of Newfoundland, 1914 to 1918. War Memory and the Newfoundland Regiment at Gallipoli, and so on and so forth. So I thought that was an interesting thing to sort of turn up randomly. The other interesting things that I found were, local history. There was something that was a sort of a personal memoir of life in Kentucky. Not that unusual to find in southern Indiana. Kentucky's not that far. American military history. This I thought was more interesting. Not more interesting, but something you do that you wouldn't have expected to find there. But I did. And Newfoundland is interesting because here's a weird factoid to impress people with if they're easily impressed, which is that Newfoundland was not actually part of Canada during the First World War, nor indeed during the Second World War. Newfoundland was a separate colony and then a separate dominion until 1948. So, in the sphere of the British Commonwealth, that, had its own separate, like, premier and everything. I know in Canada, they have the people who are the heads of provinces are called premiers anyways nowadays. But Newfoundland was not part of, like, the original Canadian Confederation. And so it's only in 1948 that Newfoundland became part of Canada. And it, was subsumed into Newfoundland and Labrador. So anyway, if you can come across a Canadian and you're an American, maybe knowing that will impress them. I guess otherwise it's probably not that impressive to know. But now let's go on to our second library sale. So since I was in southern Indiana, I drove to Cincinnati. Not that it's that close to Scottsburg. It was, I think, a 2-hour-ish drive. But anyway, in Cincinnati I was attracted to because it has a great Friends of the Library. For those of you who are connoisseurs of Friends of the Library sales, it is a little more expensive in that the books are individually priced with the pencils written on, the interior. It's not on the flyleaf, I mean. It's not like one of those book sales where it's like, yeah, everything is $1, or then that section it's 50 cents or whatever. But they had a lot of stuff. It is its own separate building, its own separate establishment. And it is actually quite a sizable building. It's only a one-story building, but it goes back quite a distance from the road. And lots of stuff to explore there. So sort of to group things in themes, the first interesting finds that I found were lots of stuff about Native American archaeology and history. So we've got new perspectives on the Southeast, linguistics, archaeology, and ethnohistory. With a title like that, it's very academic. It's got articles about, early Southeastern America, the ethnogenesis of the Choctaw. It has something about like pre-Columbian or languages as they were at the time of Columbus's arrival in the Caribbean. Um, so yeah, very interesting academic book. Another collection of essays, Towns and Temples Along the Mississippi. So this one is also more southern, I believe. Um, Obviously, the Mississippi River continues quite far north, but I skimmed the titles of the essays, and it's put out by the University of Alabama. So this is like, I guess, the lower Mississippi. Another collection of essays. Great. We've got a nice hardcover book in good condition. This is one of those. It's funny. I've seen lots of academic books like that where it doesn't have the separate dust jacket, but it is Emergence and Collapse of Early Villages, Modes of Central Mesa Verde Archaeology. So this is southwest rather than southeast, but again, academic, archaeology, Native Americans, very interesting. This is about the Aztecs, specifically about the temple in Tenochtitlan. I don't know if this one is a collection of essays. It's got 3 authors on it, so I don't know if it's just a... Okay, yeah, it looks like they each wrote a chapter, but each of the chapters is, a very long chapter. And then the most, I think, valuable book out of all of these is this big one right here. And I knew I had something when I saw this on the shelf. The University of Utah Anthropological Papers, number 93, Hogup Cave, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, by C. Melvin Akins. And I looked this up. I didn't read the book, so I'm no expert. But Hogup Cave is an archaeological site in northern Utah. It was excavated in the 1960s, the late 60s, and it's by the shores of the Great Salt Lake. Well, a little way away, but close to the Great Salt Lake. And it has a very extensive record of human habitation, different, archaeological cultures. And but they excavated the site. The oldest, stuff they found there was from a little, before 6000 BC, so 8,000 years ago, really old. And then the most recent stuff they found was like 19th century Shoshone artifacts. And it's a great archaeological book. It has photos of artifacts, and if you know anything, it's like shoes that are made out of like tanned hides. That's not something that you find archaeologically preserved every day, because that's organic material. So it was definitely one of those archaeological sites that every archaeologist is hoping for. So the next theme of what I've found in Cincinnati is sets of books. Those are always something that attract your attention and are nice. Now these are some more battered ex-library sets, but I think they're still interesting. So this one caught my eye because it says Analecta Anglo-Saxonica. Analecta Anglo-Saxonica, or however you would say that. But it is... I knew it was early medieval because it said Anglo-Saxons. I mean, about the early Middle Ages. Obviously, this isn't like some 7th century manuscript. But what it is, I think it is probably for learners because it's selections of Old English language literature. And it's actually, it has some water damage. It's hard to open it. But it actually is the Old English text itself. So, it's an edition where they went to the manuscripts and they prepared, an actual modern, typed version and everything, and compared the different manuscripts, etc. Or maybe since it was intended for learners, it's not an academic edition. Maybe they just were assembling bits of other people's. But anyway, it's a collection of literature in Old English. So interesting stuff there that you don't see every day. Sticking with the medieval thing, the next set is, these are the first, or 2 of them. And as you can see, this is an ex-library, reference collection book from the Library of Cincinnati. They've got all of their stamps and stuff. And there are 4 volumes in total. That's number 3. And number 4. Or, in fact, actually, by a stroke of dumb luck, it actually is volume 4. But these are the collected works of William Gower. And again, these are an edition. They are not a translation. So it's in the original language. Now, this is also a medieval work. Much later, though. These are in, Middle English rather than Old English. And, well, we'll get to the rest of it later. But Gower was a 14th century Englishman, a contemporary of Chaucer. If in a college or high school English class you ever had to read part of the Canterbury Tales, it's that sort of thing. And these are his collected works, 2 volumes of his Middle English poems, or poem. I think he's famous for one really big one, but I'm not a specialist by any means. And then it has his French works and his Latin works. 1 volume for French, another volume for Latin, and together this is the complete collection. So definitely very cool stuff. It's always great, when stuff like this is all assembled nice and neat in one place. Sorry, I had to bend over to put those down carefully. Another set. Moving past the Middle Ages, now we're in the early modern period. We have The History of the Reformation in Scotland by John Knox, edited by William Croft Dickinson. And this has its dust jackets and everything, although torn and worn and all that. But John Knox was a big guy in the formation of the Presbyterian Church in Scotland, and of course the reason why Scotland is one of the reasons why Scotland is a stereotypically Presbyterian country is a big part of the Protestant Reformation in Scotland. So obviously this is an addition of an important primary source. Now, there are some books I got just because I thought they looked cool, or that's what attracted me to them. So this is not actually that uncommon or expensive of a book, but what it is it's about the Great Chicago Fire in the 1870s, I think it was, 1871. And this is a good copy. You can see from the glare that it's got a Mylar dust jacket, but dust jacket is complete. There's no price clipping, and it is illustrated. What it is it's a collection of different eyewitness accounts of the fire from 7 different people, and it's extensively illustrated. This is the one that really caught my attention, is, the harrowing look on the guy's face. And as you can tell from that and the cover design, extensive use is made of sort of the vibrant color red. So yeah, definitely it worked on me as my eyes were caught when I passed it on the shelf. And this next one, what caught my attention, of course, is the World War I style Brodie helmet and uniform that she's wearing. I mean, really, I suppose the detail is such that it's hard to tell whether it's the old-fashioned World War I service dress or maybe Second World War battle dress. But anyway, and it's interesting. It's a fictional novel. I don't know much about it, but there's that. And then much more modern dress on the back, so I don't know if it's about one person's transition from, one to the other. But this one, as I've observed online, has some collectible value, and it has a very intact dust jacket, where I assume that on the bottom must be price clipping, but otherwise, very nice indeed. All right, And only one more book to go. So this one, a nice dust jacket, some damage on the rear, but I was attracted to it because of the topic, folklore, and that can always be very interesting. So this is Forgotten Folk Tales of the English Counties, collected by Ruth L. Tunn, with an introduction by Catherine Briggs, who is a big name in folklore. Last week, I just bought and then very quickly sold, not last week, it's a couple of weeks ago, Catherine Briggs' Dictionary of English Folktale. So, how I thought I'd wind up, instead of fizzling out just by saying, oh, I finished, talking about all the books I bought, I thought we'd go out with a bang by reading a short one of the folk tales that was collected. So this is a folk tale from Yorkshire, called The Winged Dragon of the North. They say that a fiery winged dragon came out of the north and made his den high up in the cliffside. He used to wait till a treasure train came along the king's highway below, and then he would swoop down upon it. Men and pack train ran in terror when the great fiery dragon came down at them with his wings flapping. None ever escaped, and his cave grew so full of treasure that as he lay on it, his head could be seen sticking out. No one ever went along the road, but some brave men quietly rolled some great rocks. Some brave men quietly rolled some great rocks above his den, and gave them a push right down onto his cruel head, and that settled him. And that was collected from Miss Lily Kingston, Langtoft, Lowthorpe, Yorkshire, in 1915. All right. Thanks for listening. Goodbye and good night.